Talking Michigan football with the season less than 3 weeks away. We got Justin Rowe on the line, of course, from Blue by 90. It's blueby90.com. You catch all the podcasts right there that upload on Mondays and Fridays. Justin, how you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. It's finally camp season. It feels good to say that. Real football is right around the corner, which is it's always a good time.
This is an interesting lineup of topics we got for you this week. It's not like, oh, let's review the offensive line and the linebackers and the whatever. It's, okay, where did this come from and where did that come from? And okay, so we'll start from the top with EYOBI Anoma, who was a top recruit. So I interviewed this student athlete 5 years ago. I just found it. And it took this happened 3 days ago that it was announced that he was added as a graduate transfer to the Michigan roster, and it had enrolled in school. And it took me 2 or 3 days to remember that I actually interviewed him when he committed to Alabama. But he was this phenom of an athlete who didn't play much high school football. He had been a soccer, or I believe it was a soccer player. But anyway, he didn't have much football experience in his background, but was just such a freak of an athlete that he was ranked the third best defensive end in the country. And then he commits to Alabama. He goes to Houston. He goes to an FCS school. He's all over the place based on academic and other off-field issues. But here he lands at Michigan.
Yeah. Going back to him out of high school, he was the 49th ranked recruit of all time. 49th ranked was according to 247. So, the talent is obviously there, but Mark, you and I have talked about this before, and you know it better than anybody. Talent is not all that you need. You need more than that. And so, if would I say I'm shocked to see him on Michigan's roster? 1000%, because this is not usually what Michigan does. It's not, Michigan with their academics and their standards and, yada, yada, yada. They're not ones to go and take a gamble on a guy like this. Honestly, that's hurt them in the transfer portal. We've seen that already. So a little bit surprising, but I think the connection here was that Biff Poggi, who's on Michigan staff right now as an analyst, was his high school coach. So that's obviously the connection. And so it's one of those things where Jim Harbaugh must be saying, all right, Biff, if you think you can get this kid turned around, he's obviously talented and we can use him on the roster. So I think for Michigan, in terms of the need of depth at the edge position, it's obvious after losing Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo last year that they're going to need some more bodies there. So if it all works out, which I think is a huge if, it could be a really big piece for Michigan this year.
Yeah, if you want to look at the 247 ranking, everyone, EYOBI Anoma, I should post the name to the banner because it's not the easiest to spell. But yeah, he was the number one player at his position, number one weak side defensive end. He was the fourth rated player in his class. He was right at the top. And there I see it. I didn't realize that 49th all time recruit in history of rankings.
Is that not insane? This is not some schlub. It's pretty crazy to have him go under the radar here. But it's, I think the one thing for me is okay, if he's skipping classes at Alabama and in Houston and all these places, how is school going to go for him at the University of Michigan? Classes may be difficult. But when you look at what he did at UT Martin, where he ended up for the last couple years, he's 6'6", 270. Looks like he's lean and fast. And he had quite a few sacks. His stats were not terrible. So it's obviously UT Martin. That's a different level of football than Big Ten football. But I think it's a piece here. Like I said, if it works out, all of a sudden he's in there and can make an impact here for Michigan on the defense.
with him staying on the field at UT Martin, maybe that's an indication that he's matured and grown up a little bit, and he actually is going to apply himself enough elsewhere to be able to stay on the field. You mentioned him at 6'6", 270. That's an inch taller. It's 25 pounds heavier than he was when he enrolled. Originally was scouted by 247 Sports and others. Yes, intriguing. We'll keep an eye on that. Replacing Hutch and Ajabo, may not be able to do that, but he's a freak of an athlete. There's no question about that. All right. Elsewhere from fall camp, what's popping up? But you had mentioned to me before we started to record the interesting comment made by one Jim Harbaugh concerning the quarterback battle.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback battle is all that anybody wants to talk about in Ann Arbor right now. Cade McNamara versus J.J. McCarthy and how that's going in camp. J.J. did not participate in spring ball. He was limited because of a shoulder injury. This is the first time in the fall in about 6 months that he is actually throwing live balls. So how's that going? Is Cade McNamara going to fend him off and say I'm still QB1, or does JJ's talent take over? Well, in the media, every day in every media session, that question comes up. But Jim Harbaugh apparently was asked that question, and he said, ask Jerry DiNardo, ask these BTN guys that are here, which was, I don't know why that came out of his mouth, but it seemed like it was a slight to his own Michigan media members, and he was actually giving better information to the BTN bus guys that were coming in that day, which I don't know. Jim Harbaugh is not a guy that needs to make friends. That's been clear over the years, but it was just a very interesting comment from Jim to his own media team.
We've seen this in the past with coaches, whether they side with their own local media because they figure, okay, these are the guys that are with me every day, good and bad. They're here. They cover the team. They really know what's going on, and they kind of shun off outsiders as, oh, you just show up when there's something wrong, or there's an NCAA investigation, or we just won a championship, so you show up, kind of thing. But then there's also, I've seen the examples of the others, because they know there's typically good news and it's going to spotlight the program when the national media shows up, as opposed to, oh, these guys are just digging every day for every little morsel here, and I get kind of irritated and annoyed by it.
Yeah, and I think that's Jim Harbaugh, and the Michigan football program is known to not let anybody in, especially its local members. They call it Fort Schembechler for a reason, that it's impossible to get any information out of there. So I think Jim is that type of guy, and I think he's also the guy, like, he's a Nick Saban, the I'm not going to answer it, so quit asking, that type of situation. The more you get to him, the more annoyed he gets. So, I think there was, we talked about it before we jumped on here too. There were situations in the 2020 year when not one person was talking good things about Jim Harbaugh, right? And I think that irked him. And then in 2021, he proves everybody wrong. He didn't forget about what everyone was talking about in 2020, and with the NFL flirtation and all those things. So I think it's one of those situations where Jim Harbaugh is saying, screw you guys. I don't need you. You weren't with me then. You don't have to be with me now, that type of thing. But, we'll see how that pans out during the 2021 season, because, there's a chance that Michigan doesn't do well this year or doesn't win the Big Ten. And then how does this media, you still want them on your side, I would imagine, at some point here, right?
Jim, if you're listening, if I show up for any kind of news conferences, I was the guy that said 2020 was a blip on the radar. I defended your track record, not even as a Michigan guy. And I know I did not predict a Big Ten championship, but I did predict 9-3 and said, they're going to go right back to doing what they do. They're going to be a top 10 or 15 team, 9-3. So I was at least right there at that point. Okay.
I'll relay the info next time I see him.
Very nice. Justin Rowe, Blue by 90 podcast. And there you see the website now, blueby90.com. So tell us about that.
Yeah, we've launched a full website, got articles, message boards, all that going here. We are part of a brand new network. It's called the Full Ride Network. Was launched by Ant Wright, who is a major media member for Michigan, played basketball at Michigan as well. So a new venture for us that we're excited about, and just bringing brand new content, trying to spice things up over here in Ann Arbor.
Nice. Blueby90.com. Get on over there, check it out. And those podcasts still upload on Monday and Friday?
Yeah, honestly, it'll be probably even going into the season here a little bit more because we've brought on a few more podcasters. So we've got some extra shows going too.
Very nice. All right. Any other morsels from fall camp? Anything that's hit you in regards to getting ready for the big Colorado State matchup?
Yeah, everyone's looking forward to that. I know right away. I think there's a couple things that have come about. One is how Oluwatimi is doing at Michigan. He was a Walter, or what's the
Remington.
There you go. Yes. I get the awards all mixed up, but he was the Remington finalist at Virginia and transferred to Michigan. And so for me, my wonder was, how do you mix into one of the best offensive lines that Michigan has had in quite some time, and just being around the team, being around him. I've interviewed him. He is vibing really well with this group, and they truly think that they're going to be even better than they were last year. So if you're a Michigan fan, that is music to your ears, because you know how good that offensive line and that run game was last year. And he is, from everything I've heard, he's elevated their play, which is going to be pretty impressive. So there's that part. The wide receiver room as well is something that I think is super intriguing because it almost has too much talent, which is, it's crazy to say that, but you've got a Ronnie Bell coming back who didn't play, in 99.9% of snaps last year, had one catch for 76 yards and then tore his ACL. How do you fit him into a wide receiver room that is already stacked? You've got Andrell Anthony coming on, who played really well as a freshman last year. AJ Henning has been noted as maybe playing like a wide back position, actually, that Deebo Samuel type position. You've got Cornelius Johnson, who's the senior, and he was the leading receiver this past year. You've got Roman Wilson, who's the fastest guy on the team. And then you've got Eric All, who's one of the best tight ends in the entire conference as well. So it'll be interesting, in my opinion, how they get everyone their reps. How do they get everyone the ball, or do they emerge and say, all right, these are our top three guys, we want to get them the ball the most? I wonder how that will pan out here in the season.
Well, Justin, let me hit you with this, because this was presented to me by Steve Days on Michigan Podcast a few days ago, and now I've tossed it out on a few different platforms. So if you look at the three games from last season to open the season, and of course Washington was supposed to be a big game, they didn't turn out to be the best team in America. Michigan just kept it close to the vest, ran it three times more than they passed it. All of those things that we already know about. I went through the numbers. I think it was 149 runs and 37 passes, something in that range, or maybe K through 37, JJ through 12. I think that's what it was, something in the range of 3-1 for the first three games of the season, when I thought, hey, you need to throw it around the yard to prepare for later. We know you can run it. In the aftermath, it obviously proved to be successful to prepare the team. You talk about the expanded wide receiver room, keeping those guys happy, keeping the reps up so that they get into a flow and so that they're on the same page, versus having this ground attack that's going to be strong. You got two instead of what you had last year, which was basically Hassan and Blake. So you got a different two. Just, do you expect any different approach, run pass ratio this season?
Yeah, I was one of those guys last year that was screaming in those first few games, throw the ball. We need to make sure that we can do this. I mean, I was already looking to the Ohio State game. It's in order if you want to beat Ohio State, in my opinion, you had to throw the ball. Well, of course, Hassan Haskins then goes for 5 touchdowns, and the rest is history there. So Jim Harbaugh did prove us wrong, but I think you make a great point there is, and the reason why I think that they will possibly throw the ball more is because they're going to want to see how both Cade and JJ perform. Because, what Jim Harbaugh said actually in his media session the other day, he said the quarterback competition is very tight right now. He's going to say this no matter what, right? We all think that. But he said it's going to go up till the first game and maybe into the season is what he was saying. Now, is that him, trying to make sure he doesn't lose one of the guys, name a starter, and one of the other guys is maybe not in the portal, but just loses him in his head? Yeah, that's probably part of it. But I think that they'll try and throw early just to see, can Cade actually hit those deep balls? We know he struggled with that last year, and JJ, definitely had some more accuracy there. But also JJ made mistakes on a lot of plays. So do you want to see if JJ can come in there and actually, execute on a lot of those different plays? So I would expect them because of that, because of the quarterback competition, and then hopefully to get that wide receiver room in sync as well. I'd hope that they open up the playbook early. But knowing Jim Harbaugh, I know that he likes to keep everything very close to the chest. And, I wouldn't be shocked if they did the same thing and won 35-7 in those first 3 games and ran it 1,000 times in a row.
And lastly, Justin, we've got, of course, Michigan, a national brand, has always done well in California, and they get the second of the 2023 class from California in one ZACK Marshall, who's listed as an athlete.
Yeah, this is somebody that is not going to be a high-ranked guy right now, but I think it's a very important piece. Just because Michigan's recruiting is very quiet right now, so any piece is good at the moment. But I think there's a couple reasons why he's important. I truly think he's a diamond in the rough. He's got a big body, can be a guy that is a couple different positions possibly. And I think that the other piece of it is he's already trying to recruit other guys in California. He's been outspoken about that. He said he wants to be kind of one of the first guys of this class and make sure that he gets some other guys to be a part of it from his home state as well. So getting those guys early, and I think, it's important to have some of these pieces going into the season, because if you've got a guy that's committed like a ZACK Marshall, maybe he's not the 5-star that you want committed, but if he's there for some of those home football games on Saturdays, he makes connections with recruits that are coming to town. I do think that makes a difference with familiar faces when guys are coming in and out and visiting throughout the season.
Justin Rowe, Blue by 90 podcast, blueby90.com. Get on over there, check out the work at least twice a week, breaking down Michigan football, Michigan athletics across the board. Justin, appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.